are now playing.
Hello. I thought I'd just let you have a look at this screen. What you're looking at here is a combination of a number of 40X technologies displayed at once. The picture is a map of the airway tree of the lungs and the arteries and the veins all in lungs, quantified and identified and drawn here, and then also moved at the rate at which they really do move as this particular mouse breathed, as it's at their breathing. Highlights a whole range of capabilities that 40X has and tends to get people interested and excited in my presentations. I'm here to talk to you today about 40X, and here is 40X at a glance. We are a 5-year-old company that has a big vision to change the world. And as we progress towards executing on that vision, we have accredited 24 global patents. We've designed, built and tested a mouse scanner. We have human studies using our flagship platform underway since 2017. We have 30 staff across offices in Australia and the United States, likely to open office in Asia, working hard on an FDA approval with a number of pre-milestones hit there, including having met with the FDA and discussed how to establish that FDA clearance, and well over a decade of research, an incredibly strong research pedigree, 70 research papers, numerous research awards that all show the international reputation, peer-reviewed reputation of the research that backs 40X as a business. I am Andreas Foras. I'm a mechanical engineer by training and my PhD from Monash University in Australia, where I initially invented this technology. I'm here to you today to talk to you about how 40X delivers on the promise of functional lung imaging. I use this title to talk about how, unfortunately, a number of people out there have been talking about functional imaging, because functional imaging is indeed the future of medical imaging, but really delivering old school anatomical imaging, old school structural imaging, but with some level of functional element. And that's a cheap fraud, and however 40X is honestly actually delivering functional imaging. We are measuring ventilation, we're measuring airflow, where air flows and doesn't flow in the lungs as someone breathes, as a subject breathes. The most fundamental aspect of lung function. And in addition to that, we have additional technologies which offer measurement of blood flow through the lungs, which is the last remaining component of lung function. I'm going to talk you through our presentation, an introduction, how the technology benefits, the translational capability from mice to men, human scanners, the nature of our core technology breakthrough in the human space, the outputs, so what 40X technology delivers, a significant amount of a small sample of the significant amount of extensive validation that 40X has performed, including some case studies, a discussion of our collaborations, and a summary. We have 74 peer-reviewed papers to date, or peer-reviewed publications. I think it's important for us to say publications and not papers, because some of them are abstracts and talks and whatever. We have 74 peer-reviewed publications on our website with a worldwide range of research partners spanning North America, Asia Pacific, and Europe, at a number of some of the world's best hospitals and universities, as you can see here. Existing diagnostics are failing us. I pitched that idea to doctors and respiratory researchers around the world, and very rarely have any disagreement. All decision making in research and in clinical practice, or probably best if I said in clinical practice and indeed even in research, is based on the measurements. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And the vast majority of measurements today come from spirometry, chest x-ray, and CT scan. These account for over 98% of all clinical lung research measures. And these are failing us. These three measures are providing insufficient information too late in order to make proper decisions. Spirometry is still today the most commonly performed respiratory diagnostic measure, which is incredible because it was invented in the 1860s. The key benefit of spirometry is that it is functional. So it measures how your lungs work, but unfortunately the functional component, it's obviously not imaging, it's one-dimensional measure. So it's not region-specific. Everything is lumped together into one single measure, which means that some areas are performing well, others not so well. All you get is the lumped average. Which tends to wash out all details like early stages of disease and so on. Chest X-ray, upgrade from the 1D technology of spirometry to the 2D technology of X-ray. However, there's no functional value in a chest X-ray. It's all structural. It's the appearance of your lung. Subject takes a deep breath in, holds still, and we get a still image, a still two-dimensional, flattened image of a three-dimensional lung. Very little diagnostic value. It can be used to rule out major conditions, but still persists today because the technology is widespread, the infrastructure is widespread, the infrastructure is quite safe and the radiation is very low, and the cost is quite low. So its prevalence, its low cost, its safety means that while it's relatively useful, the risk benefit is still acceptable for its use. The CTs become the gold standard today for lung diagnostics, and is effectively the new kid on the block as a 1970s technology. It is, at its core, absolutely a structural scan. It's telling you the appearance of the lung, not the function. And as a result of that, in its heart, there are some difficulties. So, for example, while there's good sensitivity, the specificity is very poor. An example is the 94% false positive rate for lung cancer screening, as per the National Lung Cancer Screening Trial, led out of UCLA. The technology is, as I said, is quite sensitive, but it's expensive and has a relatively high dose. So according to the Radiological Society of North America, a CT scan has a dose of about 70 chest X-rays worth of radiation. Of course, there are low dose CT procedures, but of course low dose equals low resolution. And as I said before, it's almost entirely, it is in itself a structural scan. And however, from that structural scan, it's possible to make inference, to infer, to guess, to model the function that comes from that. And experienced radiologists do that all of the time. They see a blockage in an airway and they infer that you would have reduced airflow as a result. They see destruction of terminal airways and they assume that you have reduced elasticity as a result. Radiologists are quite skilled at doing that, although of course you can have variability from reader to reader, and in addition to that, you can also have various software layers that can add automatic quantification on top of that, whether it's modelling, such as the work done by Merrin Torhai in New Zealand, or whether it's quantification from the CT, such as is done by Eric Hoffman and his team in Iowa, or of course the really fantastic work done by Fluida and others, by Fluida and their team. That's both a combination of quantification from the CT as well as modelling based on the CT. However, they are, however is bad, you never want to say however. Nevertheless, you can't get past the fact that the CT is purely a structural exam, and everything beyond that interfunction is inference and not measurement. Technology benefits. Actually have not developed stuff for this, okay. 40 has created technology that uniquely measures airflow everywhere in the lungs throughout the three-dimensional shape of the lung and through the fourth dimension of the time of the breathing of the lung. This is a unique. Actually, that's probably about. I mean, is that enough for that?
That's enough.
Could be that simple.
That's enough.
Yeah.
So what? Because it's about benefits, not what.
Yeah. Yeah, so do we get to how? Where do we say how in this? Where would I cover how it works?
In the technology
In the much later bit.
Much later bit, because this is just about benefits.
Yeah, yeah.
So you would normally voice over what's on the screen?
Yeah. So 40X cherry picks the core capabilities, the core advantages of each of the three technologies that currently serve the vast majority of lung measurement. 40X combines the functional insight of spirometry, however, at a regional level. 40X combines the high detail, high resolution of a CT scan, but however, at low dose of radiation and low cost, cost is probably a mistake, at the low dose of an X-ray, and combines them into one single super product which has all of those key advantages without the disadvantages of them. Furthermore, 40X delivers tomorrow's solution, high-tech, detail-rich solution for no upfront cost, for no capital cost to healthcare providers through software as a service business model. So we allow the hospital to utilise or to use its underutilised existing fluoroscopy hardware with our software layer to provide latest, greatest cutting-edge scans, but once again without the upfront capital cost of buying new equipment, finding new space to put it in, and training new staff to operate it. As we discussed, you can use, here is obviously very high-tech, state-of-the-art existing fluoroscopy hardware. Similarly, our state-of-the-art mouse scanner platform. Of course, there's no existing mouse fluoroscopy in hospital, so we've had to develop and build our own system that does both the fluoroscopy and CT imaging of mice, rats, ferrets, which delivers a truly translational capability. 40XV is a diagnostic modality uniquely suited to, it's terrible reading the words. The technology spans the platform literally from mice to men, that allows in the preclinical scanner mice, rats, rabbits and ferrets, all the way through to clinical fluoroscopy that allows for sheep, pigs, and of course adults and humans.
Okay.
So one of the numerous advantages of the preclinical platform is that if we use the example of a preclinical trial in asthma, where we have a number of time points, we might might be better to choose, say, COPD or IPF as that, if that's not a big problem to do. We give the example of a preclinical trial into COPD, where you may have, say, 5 time points, and we are looking for, say, 10 subjects at each of those time points. We require 10 time points because we have natural variability in each of those 5 groups of 10. As you can see here, where we need to sacrifice each of the subjects to examine the lungs using histology and other highly invasive technologies which are standard in mouse research. As you can see, so for example, sectioning the animal for full histological analysis, which means we then move on to the second time point with a different set of mice and so on and so forth through each of the 50 mice. Comparatively, an example of a preclinical 40x study into COPD where we have enough power for only 6 mice, you might say per time point. However, because you can longitudinally image each of those mice, you've got a total of 6 mice compared to 50, saving time, increasing power, and overall superior outcome. Furthermore, when we translate this to transition this body of research into human studies, so just at the precise moment when we're changing from a mouse model, for example, of COPD into a human research in COPD, when we're changing the species, it's the most difficult moment in the studies, where a lot of studies fail. At the same time, we're typically changing modality. So we're changing modality, say, once again, from histology to CT, preserving the modality as you transition through from preclinical to clinical studies also significantly adds power, reduces cost and uncertainty.
So if you back arrow now.
Okay, right, that's what I need to do. Right. Would I click under now to go to future of human scanners?
Yeah, so sorry, I clicked on the wrong bloody thing myself. I'll go back to that again. So there, and you go. That's right. So if you just go down.
So just go down from here. Not
down from here.
Future.
Yep.
So I'm unprepared here for this. I apologise, Paul.
That's
so
okay.
What I don't want to do is just read that text.
Okay.
The preclinical scanner is either available as hardware to purchase, or scans can be ordered via software as a service from our partner institutions with an installed PCS. The PCS has capabilities across mice, rats, rabbit pups, ferrets and other small animals. Complete study with same subject from start to finish. So, longitudinal studies across subjects for more accurate data, smaller subject numbers, and uses the same underlying technology as human scans, i.e., same concept as fluoroscopy in the human scans. As we said, in the human setting, and indeed in the large animal setting, sheep, pigs, etc., clinical fluoroscopy is the imaging modality that's used, which means that there's no requirement for capital expenditure of new equipment. And in fact, approximately 15 seconds of X-ray fluoroscopy is sufficient for a complete scan. So with the modern pulse fluoro, the dose is incredibly low. 0.2 milligray, about 2 chest X-rays, or about 3% of a CT dose. Furthermore, we do see a world in which there is a dedicated human 40X scanner. It's a very exciting situation. While it's, we don't see it as how new collaborators or customers will enter into the 40X market, we do see an opportunity later on for a dedicated human scanner. Here you can see a very exciting high-tech example of how a 40X scanner system might work. Of course, there's, it's very high-tech, but the key aspect, I think, that we want you to take away from having a look at this potential example is that the subject is standing, the subject walks into the scanner, simply does the scan by breathing while in the scanning region. You can see as shown by the grey footprint on the floor, while in this case they can maintain eye contact with the operator. Remain standing, walk in, breathe naturally, walk out. Really very exciting prospect for the technology, which will allow also for lower dose and high throughput. Underpinning, so we're at technology breakthrough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Underpinning the 40X technology is a technology breakthrough that has its roots in wind tunnel imaging as performed by mechanical engineers around the world. You can see a typical sort of engineering wind tunnel system with lasers and optics and cameras and image processing software. Those are the pedigree or the history of that led to the 40XB technology breakthrough. This breakthrough allows for the measurement, the accurate measurement with resolution in space, so highly resolved three-dimensional measurements in space, also highly resolved in time, so multiple points across a breadth, whether that's a mouse or a human or anything in between. Highly resolved measurement of motion, and that is then converted. That underlying measurement is then converted into the following outputs. So from the measurement of motion, so the technology breakthrough allows us to directly reconstruct a 3D motion field, not with hundreds of projections as per a CT, but using only a very small number of projections, only 3 to 5 projections. So without first reconstructing a three-dimensional image, which creates this opportunity to do it rapidly and to do it for very low dose. You can see that here is sort of a graphical representation of the algorithm as it was first envisaged back in 2005. Still fundamentally the same algorithm, and this algorithm has been extensively validated across a range of disciplines. So in the physics discipline, X-ray physics discipline, published in applied physics letters, and in mechanical engineering discipline, published in experiments in fluids, and using the approaches that are appropriate to those disciplines to validate that the algorithms are indeed functional, accurate, legitimate algorithms. Legitimate's a terrible word. That the algorithm is effective and accurate. Down again, is that right? No, I've gone to case studies now somehow.
Yeah, no, so if you go, sorry, sec.
So that underlying motion calculation then creates a platform from which a number of outputs can be created. So from a detailed measurement, four-dimensional measurement of tissue motion, it's relatively straightforward to create a four-dimensional image. Here's a two-dimensional slice of that in time, but a four-dimensional image of ventilation. So we can calculate ventilation, where the air is moving, and by extension not moving in the lungs as subject breathes. Furthermore, with the availability of low-resolution CT data, we are able to, plus the availability of that motion field, we are able to calculate regional 4D airway flow. So we can directly calculate the speed and direction of airflow, of flow of air through every branch of the airways in the lungs throughout every phase of the breath. Those joined capabilities allow us to deliver almost any pulmonary function test output on a regional airway by airway basis. So for example, here we can see volume flow loops in three selected airways in the lungs. They could be in absolute terms as they are here, or normalized by lung volume, or alternatively we can select one single region and perform multiple scans across time points in a study, as clinical progress or research, and then easily compare them quantitatively for a time comparison of, in this example, volume flow loops, but once again, virtually any pulmonary function test type output on a regional basis quantitatively over time. The technology has been extensively validated. We've validated the technology in collaboration with physics teams through basic preclinical studies, benchtop type preclinical studies, extensive small animal preclinical studies, and through an ongoing program of clinical trials. We've conducted we have a number of case studies across numerous disease models validating the regional pulmonary function test, bleomycin-induced lung injury, which has a number of applications, none the least of which is as a IPF model, cystic fibrosis lung disease, asthma, emphysema, congenital diaphragmatic hernia, prenatal injury, and ventilator-induced lung injury. We have a couple of examples that we are going to show today, starting with this example of published in scientific reports of cystic fibrosis lung disease. So I clicked on the...
Click on the top one? Yep.
Yep, and I'm in the scientific reports. So it's published in collaboration with a number of researchers, Rick Boucher, Marcus Moore, and David Parsons and his group, as well as my group at Monash University. Very simply and very powerfully, we can see that in a litter-mate control, we have no ventilation defect. In a beta-ENaC transgenic mice, which is used here as a surrogate of CF-like lung disease, we can see a number of ventilation defects. Interestingly, that doesn't loop until stopped. Might be nice if it did. On 53.
Doesn't loop until...
There's loop until ventilation defect in the lower left lung, where there's a little to no filling of that lower left lobe. However, we can see in the upper left, we can see that there's quite significant filling of the upper left lung. However, that filling is slow, so we have a slow filling defect in the upper left lung, and you can see in the right lung extensive overventilation, so automatic compensation of the healthy tissue. All of that can be clearly identified, demonstrating the power of 40xV in this model. We then progress to a airway flow, which we've then further from the airway flow, as I said, we've looked at able to take virtually any pulmonary function test measure. In this example, we've looked at expiratory time constant, where we can identify the areas which are slow filling as per the visualization that we had before. There's the same data captured here, showing the regions in the lower left and upper left which are slow filling. And in some ways, most excitingly, we're able in this study to do a direct one-for-one comparison. You can directly identify ventilation defects or filling expiratory time constant defects and directly correlate them one-for-one in histology, a defect as shown by the functional imaging, and then through sectioning to identify the cause of that for, as I said, a direct one-for-one correlation. Probably said one-for-one a few too many times, but I think it is, it's super powerful, super exciting. Furthermore, we're able to show the capabilities of work that you can do with quantification of data. Because the data is quantitative, here we're able to perform a k-means analysis that phenotypes the transgenic mice here into 3 groups, which we've labelled as patchy disease, mid-stage disease, and late stage. Sorry, those labels have actually disappeared off this.
They have.
There's 3 little labels of, I think, early stage patchy or patchy something and something.
D7.
And it would be nice just to say, what each of those 3. Another example, while it may not be of particular use to many people, as an example of how due to the quantitative nature of the work that we do, that virtually any question can be answered by the interested physician or researcher, looking to ask a pertinent question. Here we've using the capability in the preclinical system, in the PCS mouse scanner. Here we have 2 mice where we've done a 40 scan, and through a custom-based analysis, we have gated that same scan twice, once to the respiratory trace and another time to the cardiac trace, creating 2 40 CT sequences. We could take the respiratory sequence, do the analysis that you've seen previously. However, we can also, of course, take the cardiac sequence, and rather than looking at the cardiac effects, actually we're looking at what's happening in the lung as a result of the beating of the heart. And you can see that in this visualization here, that in the mouse lung, as the heart beats, there's quite a rapid and somewhat chaotic pulsation, movement of airflow, directly as a result of the beating of the heart. And we can see here an analysis of the gas mixing as a result initially of just simply the ventilation of breathing, but also as a result of the beating of the heart, showing a significant increase in mixing in the mouse lung as a result of the beating of the heart. As I said, core reason for demonstrating this example is not only just the peer-reviewed support of the capability, but actually probably dump that, but specifically showing that virtually any out-of-the-box question can be answered using this technology, because it's quantitative and because it's a quantitative tool. With the has the power of imaging, but delivers quantitative outputs.
Back arrow. Yep.
Back arrow. 40X is actively looking to hear from you if you have a question that you think is worth answering that can't be answered, using other technologies. Jeffrey Hounsfield, a hero of modern medical technology, the inventor of the CT scan, has delivered fantastic health outcomes for decades. Developed CT for creating images of the brain, and as much as his genius is to be appreciated, of course CT is now used well outside of the brain, and this is an outcome which resulted from Hounsfield placing the CT technology in the hands of curious researchers, skilled physicians, each of which asked questions through using that technology. So our question for you is, how can this technology help your research, or help your clinical practice? "40X 40XV provides functional insight of PFT, a three-dimensional high-resolution nature of CT, and a dose and cost comparable to X-ray in one highly powerful platform, one singular technology that delivers the advantages of these three technologies that currently serve 98% of the marketplace." 98%. I don't like, if it's a research thing, it shouldn't say marketplace, and it should say 98%
Of diagnostic procedures.
Of procedures, of measurements. Additionally, it's a singular platform that uniquely spans from small animal to large animal to pediatrics and to the adult clinical setting. We've extensively validated the technologies in benchtop preclinical, small animal preclinical, and amassing, assisting a range of experts in progressing in a mouse setting. And we see the potential to create valuable collaborative partnership, whether it's in preclinical or clinical work. I think 40X has an opportunity to make a positive difference, and we'd love for you to be part of that with us.